until proven guilty.
There's two choices, the Susan Collins way or the protester way. Who do you want to run the government?
This man has been mistreated. This man has been subjected to a set of procedures that were designed to trip him up.
More than 100 anti-Brett Kavanaugh protesters are arrested as demonstrations continue to rage throughout Capitol Hill.
The mob was not able to intimidate the Senate. We stood up to the mob. We did the right thing for a good man.
We are back with a Fox News alert. Mitch McConnell delivered for Donald Trump by delivering Brett Kavanaugh on this Saturday edition of Fox and Friends. That's a live look of the Senate floor because the cloture vote happened yesterday, which everyone was following. It passed. That means later on today, they tell me 4:52 p.m., so don't miss it, is when likely the vote will happen to confirm the future Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh. But yesterday, guys, and Rachel and Griff, thanks for being here this morning.
You can call me a guy.
You know, guys, no, it's a colloquial term.
I get
Ladies and gentlemen, although Griff's not a gentleman, if you really you know, all eyes were on that vote yesterday.
That's right. That's right. I mean, at 4:52 p.m., it's not just a vote. History will be made, significant history, and that is the confirmation of Judge Brett Kavanaugh, and it will be likely because of the actions of an unlikely senator, Susan Collins of Maine, who, following the lead, as we pointed out, of Lindsey Graham, decided that she is going to properly do her job as laid out in Article 2 of the Constitution to advise and consent on Brett Kavanaugh. Here is some of what Susan Collins said yesterday.
Judge Kavanaugh has received rave reviews for his 12-year track record as a judge. We must always remember that it is when passions are most inflamed that fairness is most in jeopardy. I do not believe that these charges can fairly prevent Judge Kavanaugh from serving on the court. I will vote to confirm Judge Kavanaugh.
That was a 44-minute speech. And by the way, you mentioned unlikely hero for the conservatives in this very important and crucial moment. She laid out the case for Brett Kavanaugh, and as she did that, reminded conservatives of all the things they may not like about Brett Kavanaugh. And yet, conservatives are rallying behind her because she truly galvanized the vote. And it was shortly after she delivered it that Joe Manchin put out a tweet and then a press release saying that he would also vote yes.
And this is indeed an extension of President Trump's style of politics of standing up to a mob and saying, no, let's bring in Mercedes Schlapp, White House Senior Communications Advisor. Good morning, Mercedes. Good morning. What do you make? I want to get just your reaction quickly to Senator Collins' speech.
Well, clearly, for Senator Collins, this was a moment of courage for her. It was a historic moment on the Senate floor where she carefully laid out and explained the case for why Judge Brett Kavanaugh is the most qualified candidate to be on the Supreme Court. She talked about the importance of the fact that, look, there is a lot of this emotion that has surrounded this case, but there was a lot of foul play by the Democrats as well in terms of what they did in concealing the letter for so long. She talked about the fact that when you looked at the evidence presented, it was clear that the facts were on Judge Kavanaugh's side. At the same time, she talked about what really mattered as well, which is that of a man who has served our country for a very long time, who has very good, solid judicial opinions, over 300 judicial opinions written, and obviously has gone through a very lengthy process and an interview process in the Senate, which made him clear and qualified to become the next Supreme Court justice. Yeah. So we are very proud of Senator Collins for speaking up in such a calm and prolific way, and it really shows that when you put the emotions aside and you put the fact that so many of these Democrats use destructive tactics to destroy the reputation of this fine man, it's a moment of truth, and it shows that President Trump, of course, made the right decision in picking Judge Kavanaugh, and President Trump stood by Brett Kavanaugh throughout this whole process. I don't know if any other Republican president would have done so.
Yeah.
Such a great point.
It's a great point. He's taught Republicans how to fight, as Rachel has pointed out all morning long. This was, as you alluded to, a nasty, nasty process. How much does this win mean to President Trump and to this White House to come through all of this and at the end of the day get that unlikely vote from Susan Collins? But you saw allies like Mitch McConnell and Chuck Grassley and Lindsey Graham boldly make the case. Talk about the meaning of this win for you guys.
It's such a huge win for the president, but not only for the president, but for the nation, for the American people, for the fact that when President Trump was voted into office, he laid it very clearly out there of who the type of nominees that he was going to be looking for. He distributed that list wide. And so because of the fact that it is for President Trump, as Senator Collins has said, he's the one that gets to choose based on the philosophy of these judges. It's been a win, but there's been several wins. I mean, not only do we have 2 Supreme Court justices, hopefully now with the vote later today, but you're talking about over 26 Circuit Court justices judges that have been confirmed. Those are huge successes when it comes to the judicial system.
Absolutely.
It allows us to go back to where you're talking about strict constitutionalists and the fact that we're able to rebalance the court in that way.
Mercy, has the president spoken to Brett Kavanaugh yet since yesterday?
The president did speak with Brett Kavanaugh. I know it's one of these moments, again, that I'm incredibly proud of working with this president who has stood by Judge Kavanaugh, has really made it a point to explain to the American people why Judge Kavanaugh is the right person at the right moment for the court.
And after he talked to him, did you get any indication from the president of how he and his family are doing? This has been a grueling process.
Well, I know Judge Kavanaugh personally. I know his wife. It has been a very tough process. But one of the beauties of this family is the fact that, as I think it was his wife mentioned, we need to pray for mercy and forgiveness. It's a moment in time where it is putting those battles behind. But I will tell you, it's going to be very hard to forget what some of these Democrats have done from the beginning, where they made it their priority to resist, to ensure that this man would not make it to the court. And the way they did it in trying to destroy his reputation is completely uncalled for.
Mercy, let me forgive the political reporter in me, but what do you think this means now looking to the midterms?
I think this really has revealed a lot on the Democrat side. It's revealed a nastiness, as you mentioned before, that is very unfortunate. I mean, as the president's been traveling around the country and just talking to people even around in this area, women are really upset about the fact that they have tried to destroy the reputation of Judge Kavanaugh, someone who is a father, someone who's a husband, a son, someone who has dedicated his life to faith and public service, and yet they've taken him, this one person, and try to just destroy him by going back to high school, drunkenness, a yearbook. I mean, it makes you question whether anyone would want to put themselves in a position to serve in the government. I mean, Rachel, your husband serves in Congress. Politics is nasty, but it's unfortunate that when we're talking about the Supreme Court, I mean, we had never treated Sotomayor or Kagan in that way, ever. We looked at their judicial opinions, and yes, we might not agree, but to go back and try to destroy Brett Kavanaugh and the long-lasting effects that it will have on him and his family, I find it to be, this is not what we want in America.
I think you're right. I think a lot of really bright legal minds are going to go, you know what, I think I might just get a big fat paycheck in the private sector instead of public service. Let me ask you something else, because you talked about women, and I think it's really important. Women are upset. I think that the way the conversation has been laid out by the left is about dividing men and women. I'm going to tell you something that I just saw this morning that got me upset. I'd love to get your reaction. It's not just men and the division between men and women, but in a Time magazine op-ed, they talked about dividing women from their children. They said women who support Brett Kavanaugh are choosing their sons over their daughters. Wow. What do you say to that?
Well, I'm the mother of 5 daughters, so Rachel, I can't really make that comparison because you could probably talk more to it than I can. But I will tell you what I think has happened during these past 2 weeks, and just being able to talk to my 15-year-old and my 13-year-old. Yes, we've had conversations about the horrors of sexual assault. We've had conversations about making sure that you do the right thing, obviously, especially in these years that they're in high school. You have a daughter in college. But at the same time, we have to talk about the other side of this, which is about fairness and due process and the presumption of innocence, something that was completely lost in this process. And I tell you, my girls, they see it. They saw it very clearly when, they watched the opening statement from Brett Kavanaugh. President Trump in sharing thoughts with him, was basically made the argument as well. He was a man who did the right thing. I would have been proud for Brett Kavanaugh to have been my son. He did all the right things. Went to the right schools, studied very hard, was very successful in his career in public service. And yet the destructive tactics of the left, I think, has created a very damaging effect. But we will rise above that. He will serve on the court. As he said, he'll be an independent and impartial judge. He's incredibly well respected in the legal circles. And I tell you, I think when it comes back to our children, this is a lesson for all of us that we should not allow such destructive personal politics, character assassination politics, win at the end. What should win is due process. What should win is a presumption of innocence. That is what America stands for.
Nicely stated.
Absolutely.
Mercedes Schlapp, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you so
Mercedes.
much.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Mercedes.
She's exactly right. That's why I was pointing out that Susan Collins' moment said, when passions are inflamed, gotta stand firm.
Yep.
All right, on. Thank you, Griff. And some very sad news in our headlines. The American soldier killed in Afghanistan has been identified. Army National Guard Specialist James Slate died after an IED went off in the Helmand province. He served in North Carolina's 60th Troop Command after joining in 2013. The 23-year-old was deployed in April and was expected to return home next spring. Slate was posthumously promoted to sergeant. A white Chicago police officer is convicted in the killing of a black teenager. A jury finding Jason Van Dyke guilty of second-degree murder. He shot and killed 17-year-old Laquan McDonald after responding to a 911 call about someone breaking into cars in 2014. Van Dyke also found guilty of 16 counts of aggravated battery for each bullet he shot at McDonald, captured in this police dash cam video. He faces a minimum of 6 years jail. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo arriving in Tokyo overnight for a meeting with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. The top U.S. diplomat stopping in Japan just hours before heading to North Korea. Pompeo will leave for Pyongyang later today. Sorry, got that one a little tough word. For critical talks with Kim Jong-un on denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula. Pompeo will wrap up his East Asia tour with stops in South Korea and China. And those are your headlines. Tell me the right way to say that word.
Pyongyang.
Pyongyang.
Yep.
I got it. All right.
How will Kavanaugh's confirmation impact the midterms, especially with Democrat Joe Manchin voting yes? We'll try to answer that question coming up next. Welcome back. Well, Judge Brett Kavanaugh one step closer to a Supreme Court confirmation.
3 out of 4 undecided senators, including Democrat Joe Manchin, say they'll vote yes on the judge.
So what will this mean for Senator Manchin going into the midterms? And will the partisan battle over Kavanaugh give Republicans the edge in the Senate?
Here with more, Fox News senior Capitol Hill producer Chad Pergram. Chad, good morning. Thanks for being here.
Good morning.
We get updates from you internally about what's happening in the Senate and the House when no one else really knows what the process is. Anything we're missing right now about how this may unfold today?
Yeah, one of the main things to talk about is the concept in the Senate of pairing votes or live pairs. We think we know how this vote is going to go down. It's expected to be 50 yeas, 48 nays, 1 present, Lisa Murkowski, and 1 absent, Steve Daines, the Republican from Montana. Here's what's happening. Here's how a pairing works. You have 2 senators who are on opposite sides of an issue. Now, Senator Daines is not going to be here. He supports Brett Kavanaugh. He's going to attend his daughter's wedding in Montana. Senator Murkowski is opposed. But she wanted to do a favor for her friend here. So what happens, and it doesn't happen very often, it's kind of a gentle person's agreement in the Senate. It doesn't happen often, but they will pair their votes. And so when they call Senator Murkowski's name on the roll, She will rise. She will note that Senator Daines, had he been present, would vote yes. And she notes that she is a no, but she will not actually cast a no ballot. She will vote present. And so they pair off. And so she says, it is a little confusing. But in the words of Senator Murkowski, when I talked to her late last night about this, she said, quote, everything we do here is kind of confusing.
Well, and so nice for, him to be able to walk his daughter down. I mean, this is an important vote, but that's an important moment in a family's life. So very nice of her to do that.
Chad, let me just quickly get you to the midterms. I mean, in full disclosure, Chad is the brightest we have at Fox News, and I frequently consult him when I am doing political reportings. But, I mean, for those of us that cover all those members of Congress, this is going to have an impact on the midterms. What is your take on it?
Well, it depends which side it energized. There's a lot of people who think this may have supercharged the right because of the support for Brett Kavanaugh and maybe how they feel he was ill-treated by the Democrats. It was interesting just minutes after Joe Manchin, the Democrat from West Virginia, who's in a competitive race in a swing state this fall, his opponent, Patrick Morrisey, the Republican, put out a statement. I'm going to read this to you a little bit. He called Senator Manchin's decision to support Kavanaugh craven, and he was, quote, trying to save his career. Now, you can imagine what Patrick Morrisey might have said had Joe Manchin decided to vote no. So, Joe Manchin might not be in a win-win, lose-lose situation there, no matter how he would vote. But again, our polling has reported that Manchin is ahead of Patrick Morrisey in West Virginia. But look at some other states. You look at Heidi Heitkamp from North Dakota. She is trailing Kevin Cramer, the statewide Republican congressman there, and she decided to vote no. And it's not just because you're going to vote for Brett Kavanaugh that the Republicans suddenly call off the dogs on these Democrats who are in tight races in Republican states this fall.
All right. Thanks, Chad. And should anything happen to this vote, we expect a 452 change. We will quickly call you.
Keep us
Thank
posted.
you, sir.
Certainly.
Thanks, Chad.
Thank you, Chad. All right, Senator Shelley Moore Capito slamming the gavel following the dramatic vote, advancing Kavanaugh to confirmation. The West Virginia senator, she joins us next, live.
Welcome back. Some quick headlines for you. Mike, the situation will soon be behind bars. A judge sentencing the Jersey Shore star to 8 months in prison and 2 years supervised release for tax evasion. Sorrentino must also pay a $10,000 fine. The reality TV star pleaded guilty to falsifying tax returns and concealing income. And Ryan Lochte is getting help for a drinking problem. TMZ reporting the 12-time Olympic swimming medalist is now seeking treatment after a drunken incident at a California hotel recently. Lochte made headlines 2 years ago after falsely claiming he was robbed at gunpoint after a night of drinking at the Summer Games in Brazil. Pete?
Those are a couple of headlines.
I give you guys the sports headlines. Give me the reality TV ones.
You should, yeah. All right, well, it's the moment that set in motion the next phase of Judge Brett Kavanaugh's fate.
On this vote, the yeas are 51, the noes are 49. The motion is agreed to.
West Virginia Senator Shelley Moore Capito slamming the gavel, advancing Judge Kavanaugh to be confirmed as Supreme Court Justice.
And she joins us now just hours before the big vote. Senator, good morning. It's going to be quite a historic day, isn't it?
It is a very historic day. Yesterday certainly was, and I look forward to later this afternoon.
Senator, you sat behind Susan Collins when she gave her speech. You were there with the gavel. Did it really come down to the last minute? Was there doubt in that moment?
When I was seated presiding over the vote, we really didn't know what several senators were going to do. So it became a very historic, heightened tensions. Most of the senators are sitting at their seat voting, which is a rare occurrence. Usually we're huddled around the vote counter. And so I really took it all in. The galleries were full. The press was there. So it was a bit of a surprise, yes.
Senator, there was a moment of that speech from Senator Collins when she said, when passions are most inflamed, it is fairness that is most in jeopardy. Your reaction to that?
Well, I was just incredibly honored to hear her speech, to learn so much from her just in that moment. But when she talked about fairness and the presumption of innocence and the tenets of our democracy, her speech was so well researched, well delivered, and so powerful that I think when it comes right down to us, the fairness aspect of what we've seen moving forward is why I think Brett Kavanaugh will be confirmed later this afternoon.
We just had your colleague, Senator, on, Senator Hyde Smith, and she said that there was an intention to stand behind her, as sort of a sisterhood of conservative women. Really nice to see that happening in such an important moment, because it has been a difficult week. And I wanted to ask you about another colleague of yours, Senator Cory Booker, who was caught on tape saying to activists, get up in their faces, and was called out by another senator's wife, Rand Paul's wife, saying, come on, this is not the right way, to do this. We're already in heightened times. There has been violence against members of Congress. Do you feel safe? And what do you think about what Cory Booker said in this environment?
Well, quite honestly, the last several weeks have been very eye-opening to me. I've been on Capitol Hill for several years now, and I've never felt that the safety aspects of us traveling to do our job back and forth to the Capitol or meet with our constituents was as tenuous as it was this last week. And so I think extra precautions, I certainly made extra precautions for myself to make sure that I was not alone and had people around me to help me if I found myself. I was yelled at in the halls and all that. I mean, I don't want to give up anybody's right to yell at me or tell me what they think, because that's the way America was founded. But we cannot incite people to get up in faces, to become so aggressive that their frustrations may lead them to do something that maybe they didn't intend to do in the beginning, and then it gets physical, and then somebody's going to get hurt.
Yeah, that's
somebody
a bad
is going to
cycle.
get hurt.
No, you're right. Senator, you're from West Virginia. Your fellow senator is Joe Manchin. He says he will vote for Brett Kavanaugh. You have endorsed his opponent, Republican. What's this going to mean for that race and constituents back home?
Well, I think that it will put a different spin on the race. I think that I have endorsed Patrick Morrisey because I want somebody who plays on the same team with me that would vote for tax reform and other things. I am good friends with Senator Manchin, and no matter what happens, I think our friendship will stay intact. But I think it's a close race. It's going to be a close race. As we know, the president is very well beloved in our state. He's been there twice. I expect him to come back. And so I think it'll go right down to the wire.
It certainly will.
Absolutely.
Just like the vote. Senator,
Thanks,
thank you very
Senator.
much for your time. Shelley Moore, Capitol. We appreciate it.
Thank you all.
All right.
Got it.
Thank you. Now, Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation today will be another win for President Trump. And Ed Henry is here to weigh in on this historic day in Washington.
Now he's here. Now he's
right
here.
Now he's here.
Now he's.
You missed me. Oh, come on.
The mob was not able to intimidate the Senate. We stood up to the mob. We did the right thing for a good man. I filled a lifetime appointment on the Supreme Court. There's a lot to celebrate today. I couldn't be prouder of all of my members.
That was Majority Leader Mitch McConnell last night on the Ingram Angle. Joining us now, Ed Henry, Fox News chief.
I was trying to sleep in. I wasn't supposed to work. Management called me. They woke me up and said, you got to go take Pete's temperature. Something's wrong. He's saying nice things about Mitch McConnell. We might have to make a switch because we think he's sick or something.
And Susan Collins.
He loves the swamp all of a sudden.
I said it earlier. Mitch McConnell ate a Snickers, and he brought his A game. You got to give him his due.
I was listening on Sirius XM, and I didn't understand the Snickers joke, but now I get it.
Well,
I was trying to keep up.
Here's the thing, though. Mitch, and I want to get your take on it. I mean, Mitch McConnell blocked Merrick Garland, shepherded in Neil Gorsuch, and now it will be
We always hear about Merrick Garland. Number one, that was a presidential election year. Joe Biden, as a Democratic senator, who said, can't do this in presidential election years. Democrats forget that. Number two, as I recall in covering then President Obama, the Republicans allowed, I believe, 2 Supreme Court justices to go through in midterm election years like we have now. And they, by the way, they went by bigger margins than this. As Lindsey Graham said.
And with no threats of sexual assault and games
or
played
impeaching the person after they're on and all of that. And here's another thing. Mitch McConnell said something very important in the middle of this process. He said, we're going to plow through this. And Democrats lied, basically. They said, he's talking about plowing over this woman who's accusing Judge Kavanaugh about sexual assault. No, he was talking about plowing through the process, obviously. He wasn't, and it was taken out of context. And he was saying, they're coming after me, but we're going to get this done. And the other point I'd make about that when I was talking about what happened in the Obama years and talking about Merrick Garland, what about what Harry Reid did? Harry Reid is the one who changed this and opened the door for President Trump to get this through with just 51 votes instead of 60 votes, number one. And I found this got lost in all the controversy this week, but Chuck Schumer's actually asked, if you guys take back the majority in November, will you bring it back to 60 votes? He didn't say yes or no, but he said, we're going to look at that.
Yeah,
You're going to look at that now? First of all, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Never.
But second of all, Democrats started that.
Of course.
And it's backfired.
Griff, Ed, Griff made a good point as we were preparing for the show. It almost feels like Mitch McConnell learned Republican Party is the party of Trump, whereas Paul Ryan never really got that memo, right? And so in the Senate, you've seen that change where he's embraced the president's agenda and has fought for it.
And I tease you about Mitch McConnell because you're always taking on the swamp and all that. And you've been right on some of these issues. But what I would point out is Mitch McConnell hasn't just plowed through with 2 Supreme Court picks and helped the president reshape the court, which is a big, big deal, obviously. But think about the tax cuts. Think about this economy. That's lost in what happened yesterday. We got another jobs report yesterday that shows the economy is rocking right now.
And by the way, going back to your point,
I'm happy to eat crow anytime I need to.
Yeah, and I'm just teasing you.
Going to your point about Mitch McConnell, the sort of the grease in that wheel might be Senator McConnell's wife, who worked for Donald Trump. I mean, usually there's a woman behind a lot of this kind of stuff.
I'm glad you mentioned her because you remember with all these protests you were just talking about with Senator Moore Capito. Remember that video a few months ago when this was really starting to heat up with restaurants?
Oh, yes. I love that video.
Elaine Chao said, you stay away from my husband.
Oh, boy. She was a mama bear and she fought back.
As a cabinet secretary, she said, you get out of the way. She wasn't scared. She pushed the security out of the way. Stay away from my husband. She stood strong.
Yeah, we need more of her out with these protesters.
And how does this all cut in the midterm? Energy, enthusiasm?
The energy's on the Republican side right now. There's polling data. That's not just me talking. I mean, look at that Fox poll a couple days back that was suggesting that in a place like North Dakota, it looks like Heitkamp is a goner. And she just finally said, look, I'm likely to lose. I'm going to stick with my party. I'm going to stick with Democrats on this. But I think Democrats are going to be deflated coming out of this. They put everything into this, which is why now that they've lost this, they're saying, well, if he's on, let's impeach him.
True.
Come on. I
Democrats are likely still they're favored to take the House back.
Yeah,
and we were seeing Jerry Nadler, who is the ranking member, the Democrat of the House Judiciary Committee, essentially saying, well, we're going to have to investigate Judge Kavanaugh now.
Because what they're doing is they're saying, and they use this word, it's not mine, he's not going to be a legitimate Supreme Court
We've been hearing
justice.
that all over the press yesterday.
Where have we heard that before? Exactly.
They said that about Donald Trump in January 2017. And what happened in January 2017 with the Women's March and Madonna and let's go blow up the White House and all that crazy rhetoric? Now you see the Women's March turning on Susan Collins, who's with the Democrats at least half the time on some of these big issues. But that statement they put out, I don't want to repeat some of the stuff they're saying about how she's an apologist for rape and all of this nonsense.
Crazy.
They are turning on their own. And so to answer your question as well about heading into the midterms, none of us know where the energy is really going to be. But boy, when Democrats are turning on their own, that's not good.
But there could be a lesson in Wisconsin when the left acted like this after Scott Walker passed Act 10. When he had to run again, and they voted for him in greater numbers. And I think it was a lot of independents and Democrats who were very frustrated with the process and the way he was treated, coming back and saying, we're going to vote against the way you're treated.
Susan Collins made another important point, which plays into what you said, which is that she said Democrats overplayed their hands. She went after them about leaking Dr. Ford's name and all of that. Susan Collins, as a moderate, fairly looked at this and said, Democrats overdid.
She was the right messenger for that message. Absolutely.
Great to see you guys.
Ed,
Great seeing you,
Pete,
too.
hope you're feeling better.
We'll see. I'll crack this open while she
You can eat the other half of my Snickers.
That's right. As you said, I'm going to get my Mitch on, right?
All right, we've got some headlines for you. A murder suspect is behind bars after an intense 7-day manhunt. Police finding Kirby Wallace in the woods north of Nashville, Tennessee. Officers spotting the fugitive while hiding behind deer blinds, waiting for the right time to move in. He was armed with a loaded handgun, but Wallace peacefully surrendered. The 53-year-old is accused of a deadly home invasion and shooting a man to death. A deadly car explosion is ruled a murder-suicide after police received letters from a father admitting to the blast. Jacob Schomoyer detailing his plan before killing himself. His 2-year-old son and a friend in Pennsylvania in the note. The 26-year-old described living an unhappy life and how he made the bomb to put in the console of his car. Police say he intentionally detonated it while they were all sitting in the vehicle. President Trump's proposed Space Force has been mocked by many, but one of our nation's leading astronomers says the idea is not so crazy.
I remember recommending a Space Force in 2001. It's not a crazy idea. a lot of Trump haters want to hate everything that comes out of Trump's mouth.
Neil deGrasse Tyson saying President Trump's proposed Space Force is an important step towards protecting our nation. And those are your headlines. I like the Space Force.
I love it.
Sounds fun.
I love it.
I wonder what Rick Regni thinks about the Space
Is there weather in space, Rick? Would we need?
Do you know what? Like you guys do to me all the time, I wasn't paying attention to you.
Oh, really?
I didn't even hear what you were
We were
talking
talking about the Space Force. I want to know, is there weather in space?
Not our kind of weather.
Okay, but there is intergalactic weather.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, I just accused this guy because you got two signs to say you like us in different colors. I thought maybe he's replacing other TV shows or other channels down below.
No, we love you.
It's just us.
Just you.
It's like it's a monogamous relationship.
Absolutely.
All right, very good. We're glad to see that. Hey, also, real guys, what's going on over here? Pete,
Whoa!
do you have any idea?
No, I have no idea. What is that?
Are they putting up Christmas lights?
Whoa, that seems too soon.
Too early.
I
Can't do
don't
that
like
before
that.
Thanksgiving.
I have no idea what's going on, but I don't know that
I'll come
I
out and
approve
inspect.
of this at all. They're not orange, they're red. All right, let's talk a little bit of weather real quick. I'm sure they're about to wrap me because I've talked too long already. Take a look at the map, show you what's going on. Here's your temps as you're waking up. A big cold front right across the central part of the country, and that's where we've got all of our action. The east, you're looking pretty good. I got the wrap because I talked too long. There you go. Big rain across the central plains. More flooding concerns as this doesn't move, at least for about the next 4 to 5 days. All right, guys, back to you inside.
Well done.
All right,
Thankfully,
thanks,
you're
Rick.
interesting,
Thank you,
Rick, so
Rick.
go on as long as you want.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. What does one of Brett Kavanaugh's lifelong friends think about his expected appointment to the Supreme Court? She joins us next. You don't want to miss it.
Also joining us live, Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy and Dean Cain. I heard he's in the building. Coming up. Can't wait. Welcome back. Couple of quick headlines. If you drink LaCroix, listen up. I will reluctantly admit that I do on occasion. Well, a new lawsuit now claiming that popular drink advertised as 100% all natural actually may contain a number of artificial ingredients, including the same ingredient found in cockroach insecticide. Company says the allegations are false, and I think going with today's theme, you should be innocent until proven guilty.
I agree with that.
Well, I'll keep drinking it. All right, and apparently vitamin D supplements aren't that great for you. A new study found they do not improve bone health or prevent fractures. Researchers also saying a higher or lower dose of vitamin D doesn't matter because the effects remain the same. Haven't we yet learned that all these studies, they ultimately cancel themselves out? You should just eat whatever you want to eat.
Vitamin D is very good for nursing moms. So let's revisit that later.
Okay.
So anyway.
So we're putting a question mark on both those headlines.
Okay.
There you go. All right. Judge Brett Kavanaugh expected to be confirmed at 4:52 p.m. as Supreme Court Justice this afternoon, thanks in part to this passionate speech from Senator Susan Collins touting his career and character.
Joining us now with reaction is someone who has known him for nearly 38 years, Julie Duvall. Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
So what do you make of everything that's happening? I mean, you know him well. The process is almost to an end. How is he doing? How is the family doing?
Well, I think everybody's going to be a lot happier when the end of the day happens today.
Yeah, no doubt.
No doubt about that.
What was it inside that crucible? And again, it's mostly him and his family, but supporters of his like yourself have been attacked and maligned also. And what's it like to stand in that firing line this week, the metaphorical firing line?
It's easy to stick by somebody who you know is innocent and is a great person. And there's a big group of us that went to the Senate the other day, went to visit various offices, and hundreds of letters were written in support of Brett, people that have known him personally over the years. And we delivered them to different senators' offices. And it was a success, I hope.
Julie, you have been here. Thank you for coming on. I know everybody's really tired, those that have been supporting him, but have you had a chance to speak with Judge Kavanaugh or his wife about Senator Collins giving that speech and talking about fairness prevailing?
I have not spoken with him about it. I've spoken with people that have spoken with him, and we are so grateful to Senator Flake, Senator Manchin, and Senator Collins. She was an inspiration. It was an amazing speech, and people can't stop talking about it.
You said that this whole process, especially the culmination yesterday with Senator Collins, you said it was the vindication of good over evil. But has this process caused you to lose faith in our government in some ways?
For a little while it did, but I think we're going to come back, and I think it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Julie,
no, I mean, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, following up on that a little bit, do you believe that this will make qualified, good people think twice about being nominated and stepping forward?
I was very worried about that because he's got the best character, and if he can be taken down, anybody can be taken down. Who in the world would want to go through that? But I'm hoping, I've got my fingers crossed that good people will still want to go out and run for public office.
Julie, there's one note that stuck out at us. The former friend of Dr. Ford and witness alleged, Leland Kaiser, says she felt pressured by Democrats and folks on the left to change her story, while the pressure was mounting. Would that surprise you?
I can't speak to that. I just can say kudos to Leland for sticking to the truth and telling her truth. That shows volumes for her character as well.
Well, and Julie, let me just, while we're, approaching this historic vote, why don't you have the last word in telling America who Brett Kavanaugh is?
He is one of the most kind, decent human beings. He has been since high school to the present day. And the women that have supported him have known him from high school through now. They're his neighbors. They go to church with him. They worked with him at the White House. And we all say the same thing. He is absolutely incapable of doing what he was accused of doing. And it was a smear campaign. And he needs to get his good name back. He deserves it. And I can't wait to celebrate with him. I'm praying that everything works out. And at 5 o'clock, we have some great news.
Well, I'm sure he's very grateful to have friends like you who have stuck with him through this whole process. Your testimony has been important to be a witness to his character. Yeah. So thank you for joining us.
Julie, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. We're all so proud of him.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right. You too.
Now, Senator Susan Collins ripping apart the confirmation process as she announced her support for the judge. Greg Jarrett says it was the finest speech he has ever seen on the Senate floor. And he's going to join us next, live. Stay with us.
So dysfunctional, it looks more like a caricature of a gutter-level political campaign.
Welcome back. A couple of quick headlines. If you drink LaCroix, listen up. I will reluctantly admit that I do on occasion. Well, a new lawsuit now claiming that popular drink advertised as 100% all natural actually may contain a number of artificial ingredients, including the same ingredient found in cockroach insecticide. The company says the allegations are false, and I think going with today's theme, you should be innocent until proven guilty.
I agree with that.
Well, I'll keep drinking it. All right, and apparently vitamin D supplements aren't that great for you. A new study found they do not improve bone health or prevent fractures. Researchers also saying a higher or lower dose of vitamin D doesn't matter because the effects remain the same. Haven't we yet learned that all these studies, they ultimately cancel themselves out? You should just eat whatever you want to eat.
Vitamin D is very good for nursing moms. Okay. So let's revisit that later.
Okay.
So, anyway.
So we're putting a question mark on both those headlines.
Okay.
There you go. All right. Judge Brett Kavanaugh expected to be confirmed at 4:52 p.m. as Supreme Court Justice this afternoon, thanks in part to this passionate speech from Senator Susan Collins touting his career and character.
Joining us now with reaction is someone who has known him for nearly 38 years, Julie Duvall. Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
So what do you make of everything that's happening? I mean, you know him well. The process is almost to an end. How is he doing? How is the family doing?
Well, I think everybody's going to be a lot happier when the end of the day happens today.
Yeah, no doubt.
No doubt about that.
What was it inside that crucible? And again, it's mostly him and his family, but supporters of his like yourself have been attacked and maligned also. And what's it like to stand in that firing line this week, the metaphorical firing line?
It's easy to stick by somebody who you know is innocent and is a great person. And there's a big group of us that went to the Senate The other day, went to visit various offices, and hundreds of letters were written in support of Brett, people that have known him personally over the years, and we delivered them to different senators' offices. And it was a success, I hope.
Julie, you have been here. Thank you for coming on. I know everybody's really tired, those that have been supporting him, but have you had a chance to speak with Judge Kavanaugh or his wife about Senator Collins giving that speech and talking about fairness prevailing?
I have not spoken with him about it. I've spoken with people that have spoken with him, and we are so grateful to Senator Flake, Senator Manchin, and Senator Collins. She was an inspiration. It was an amazing speech, and people can't stop talking about it.
You said that this whole process, especially the culmination yesterday with Senator Collins, you said it was the vindication of good over evil. But has this process caused you to lose faith in our government in some ways?
For a little while it did, but I think we're going to come back, and I think it's going to be fine.
Yeah. Julie, no, I mean, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, following up on that a little bit, do you believe that this will make qualified, good people think twice about being nominated and stepping forward?
I was very worried about that because he's got the best character, and if he can be taken down, anybody can be taken down. Who in the world would want to go through that? But I'm hoping, I've got my fingers crossed that good people will still want to go out and run for public office.
Julie, there's one note that stuck out at us. The former friend of Dr. Ford and witness alleged, Leland Kaiser, says she felt pressured by Democrats and folks on the left to change her story, while the pressure was mounting. Would that surprise you?
I can't speak to that. I just can say kudos to Leland for sticking to the truth and telling her truth. That shows volumes for her character as well.
Well, and Julie, let me just, while we're, approaching this historic vote, why don't you have the last word in telling America who Brett Kavanaugh is?
He is one of the most kind, decent human beings. He has been since high school to the present day. And the women that have supported him have known him from high school through now. They're his neighbors. They go to church with him. They worked with him at the White House. And we all say the same thing. He is absolutely incapable of doing what he was accused of doing. And it was a smear campaign. And he needs to get his good name back. He deserves it. And I can't wait to celebrate with him. I'm praying that everything works out, and at 5 o'clock we have some great news.
Well, I'm sure he's very grateful to have friends like you who have stuck with him through this whole process. Your testimony has been important to be a witness to his character. Yeah. So thank you for joining us.
Julie, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. We're all so proud of him.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right. You too.
Now, Senator Susan Collins ripping apart the confirmation process as she announced her support for the judge. Greg Jarrett says it was the finest speech he has ever seen on the Senate floor. And he's going to join us next, live. Stay with us.
So dysfunctional, it looks more like a caricature of a gutter